mute this. Man, technology these days, I swear. And we've talked a lot about like the silver lining and everything that's going on. And I think it's forced everybody's hand to kind of do the things that you've been putting off for so long because you quote unquote didn't have the time.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so being able to, facilitate remote interviews has been on our list. Really building up our YouTube content has been another thing that we've been wanting to do. And it's just like, now we actually have the time to do it. So it's been interesting getting the opportunity to learn. Okay, so we're live on YouTube now. We're here with we're here with Chad Priest, CEO of the American Red Cross Indiana region. Chad, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Really, really appreciate being here.
No, absolutely, and I'm very excited. We were connected by a mutual friend, Josh Driver. He's a great
That's right.
of people, and he reached out to us and said, "Hey, I have somebody who's looking for some podcast help, and it looks like this might turn into something that's a little bit more ongoing, where we're going to be providing people with some pretty important information about the whole coronavirus COVID-19 thing that's going on." And I think our listeners and the community at large appreciate any opportunity to get good factual information that's actionable as well. So I'm very excited to see what we can come up with, Chad.
Well, thanks. I only regret that I'm drinking a LaCroix and not a beer. And so we have to do this again with an actual beer in my hand, and look forward to that moment. And really appreciate you having me on here, even with the sparkling water.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hydrating myself. Try not to get into the habit of drinking anything too early, especially now, because that can go downhill pretty quickly. But
that's for sure.
Yeah, give us a little bit of background about what you do, kind of how you got to the American Red Cross.
So I'm the CEO of the American Red Cross in the Indiana region, which in a few days expands beyond the state of Indiana to include parts of Ohio, Illinois, and Kentucky. And that's just how we organize around the country. I actually started at the Red Cross when I was a kid. So my very first Red Cross gig was as a lifeguard. I had actually a swim instructor that was like, "Oh, I bet you're not tough enough and disciplined enough to come take a lifeguard class." And it was like, yeah, I'm totally disciplined enough, right? Like I was very easily manipulated. So I took this lifeguarding course and became a lifeguard, and then taught CPR classes for a while for the Red Cross. They said, "Would you be a disaster worker?" And I was like 17, and I was like, "Yeah, right. Yes, I absolutely want to be a disaster worker." And I did that during high school. I worked at the first aid station at like the state fair. So it was basically me and like bee stings and like people throwing up after like carnival rides. And then I went off to college. I became a nurse. I'm a lawyer, became a sort of an armchair academic, and worked at the university for a while, and ran a nonprofit that dealt with emergency management. So I've been doing disaster and emergency management work my whole career. I was in the military for a little bit in there. I've done all sorts of stuff, but I got a call one day that said, "Would you consider coming to be the CEO of the Red Cross?" And I said, "No, absolutely not." They said, "Why?" And I said, "I don't know. Like, isn't it like bee stings at the fair?" And they said, "You're such an idiot. Come in and talk." And I did. And it's now my 5th year. It'll be 5 years in October. And
Wow.
I've never had a job that I felt so proud of like this, leading over 4,000 humanitarians around the state in what is an amazing effort. So that's sort of my background, how I got here.
And I mean, is that something that you would have thought kind of going through your career, like you would end up doing? Like, even in the back of your mind, was there ever any moments where you're like, "Man, I feel like this is kind of my calling," right? Like, I would assume that a position like this is something that feels more of like a calling, right? Like, doing humanitarian things.
Yeah, I think if I didn't have the words for it, right? So I think the idea of being a humanitarian, yes, absolutely. I think it is a calling. I didn't start my career thinking, "Oh, I'm going to be the CEO of the Red Cross." Like, that's just, in fact, I always tell people when I'm like talking to college classes or whatever, that like, I have no linearity in my career. Like, I can make up a story in retrospect that makes everything sound so beautifully put together, but it's just totally fabricated. I got to do things because I just kept saying yes. And The things I said yes to were aligned with passion. And that passion for me is the human condition, both as a nurse and as a lawyer. So I guess in some ways, this is the only job I'm qualified for, but to think, did I plan this? No way. No way. I've had a lot of people in my life that have given me a lot of chances, many of which were undeserved. So I just kept saying yes to them.
That's awesome. So I guess let's start with a little bit of context. I don't want to insult anybody by saying that they don't know what the American Red Cross is, but I'll be that person and be vulnerable and say, I honestly had to Google a YouTube video of like, I need to know exactly, like, give me a 30,000 foot view. Like, what's the Red Cross really, really do? Because it's an organization that I think just peripherally everybody knows exists and is doing good things. But I think specifically, if you can dive in a little bit, just like what areas you guys focus on.
Absolutely. At the core, the Red Cross alleviates human suffering, and we do that through the power of volunteers and the generosity of the American people. So, I mean, that is the core function. The layer underneath is that we are all about building resilient communities. And resilient communities are those communities that bounce back better when bad stuff happens. And that is the Red Cross. We have 5 service lines that if you put them all together, you think, what business would do all that? What nonprofit would do all that? Well, we did. And when Clara Barton started this thing in the United States over 138 years ago, the very first thing we did was help members of the military. So if you got to remember, Clara Barton's sitting in her boarding house in Penn Quarter in DC, and these troops are returning from Maryland and they're all missing their families. She starts connecting them. Well, that's our first service line, the services to the armed forces. And we still connect military and veterans all over the world to their families. We provide a range of veteran and military services. That's a big piece of our work. The other, a lot of people, this is our disaster work. We respond to a disaster about every 8 minutes in the United States. Yeah, it's immense. And a lot of that is home fires. People don't often think about it, but if your house catches fire, it's the same as if a neighborhood has gone through a tornado. You're displaced, you need assistance. Our volunteers are doing that work. Of course, we respond to bigger events, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, the global pandemic, whatever it may be. And we're also really interested in helping communities get better to care for themselves, right? So we do a ton of preparedness work and resilience building work inside of communities. We train people. We train people to look after their neighbors. So CPR, first aid, lifeguarding, giving naloxone to someone who may be experiencing an opioid overdose, using a tourniquet to stop bleeding. These are skills that once taught, neighbors then help neighbors, and it changes the dynamic of what a community can do for itself. We provide services all over the globe, not only through the American Red Cross, but we're a global movement, right? We're not a nonprofit. I always tell people, we are a nonprofit, but we're not a charity. We're a global movement. And so we do things like connecting families that are displaced, helping obviously with international disaster work. We're doing this cool stuff where we're mapping communities so that we can deliver things like measles vaccines and others. It's amazing. And then finally, we're 50% of the blood supply in the United States. So for the vast majority of people who get blood, they're going to get it from us. And to give you a sense of what the market looks like in blood, there's the American Red Cross, and then there's like maybe 40 some other organizations that do this. We all work in partnership. So whether it's blood, training, responding to a disaster, we help communities bounce back better when bad stuff happens. And it's really important to note, the we is us, right? This is the way the Red Cross is designed. The we is not some army of people that come to your neighborhood. When we do it right, it's you, it's your neighbors. It's you saying, oh, wait, I know CPR, right? I can do that. I can help that person. So that's the Red Cross.
And right now, I think it's especially an important time for what you guys are doing. So what is the Indiana region for the American Red Cross doing right now amidst everything that's going on with COVID-19?
Yeah, it is a really frightening time in the country, and couldn't be prouder of the volunteers and staff of the Red Cross. I failed to mention one important point earlier, which is relevant to your question. 97% of everybody that works the Red Cross, we don't pay. And so we rely on volunteers in a way that few other organizations really on the planet do. And those volunteers right now are aligning our response to COVID-19 on sort of 4 planes inside of Indiana. The first is obviously, like any organization that must continue our work, we are working really hard to make sure that our workers are healthy and safe. And that is not easy when you can't stay at home. So our folks who can stay at home absolutely are, but you can't respond to a fire very easily from home. So that's the first one. And the second is we can't degrade our mission essential services. We must be prepared to respond to the big disasters that will still happen this spring. So, we're going to have tornadoes. We had a tornado in southern Indiana that touched through Henderson, Kentucky, up in near the Evansville area. Those folks still need assistance. So keeping those essential operations running is really challenging in this environment. The other thing we can't fall down on the job with is blood. We cannot stop collecting blood. People will still get in car accidents. People will still need cancer treatments. People will still need surgery, and those things require blood. So we can't drop the ball there. The other thing we're doing is working with public health partners to amplify messages. We are a very trusted brand. We have built up 100+ years of trust just here in Indiana. I think people listen to what we have to say, and we have a moral duty to amplify the voices of our public health partners at the CDC, State Department of Health. And then we're conveners, right? So we bring together community-based organizations and others. We are a great translator of disaster work. So I always tell people we're an emergency organization, but in reality, we are a social service organization that works in crisis. And so we are good translators between the worlds of community-based organizations and the emergency operations centers where, the responders are working and all that sort of thing. And so we're busy. And I'm super proud of our folks, just super proud.
Who handles all the logistics for the number of volunteers that you guys have? Hearing you talk about the immense number of people that are helping out, being on the front lines, things like that. Like, how do you guys organize all of that?
We've got a great volunteer services department. They are a mixture of paid staff and volunteers themselves. We have a very sophisticated volunteer enrollment program. People can go to redcross.org, sign up to volunteer online. We have processes and back-end systems that trigger things and steps. And, it's funny. Just like any organization, we complain about this stuff all the time, right? Man, this system is terrible and we can never get what we need.
Right.
And, right. And then other nonprofits look at us and go, oh my gosh, like you have all of this stuff. And it's very humbling to think, well, yes, we are running at scale, immense thing. But here's the best part. Yes, we have systems and we have these incredible staff, but there's the end of the day, it's just like hustle, right? We have this. You talk about muscle memory, we've got hustle memory. So like if we've got to move a blood drive or we've got to set up a shelter, our folks know like, hey, I can pick up the phone and call, Brandon or Jennifer, or you insert whatever name, and they're going to mobilize their neighborhood. And that stuff during big disasters is super exciting. The other big piece is training. You can't just show up and do a lot of the work we do, right? It's not like, we have some jobs like that, just to be fair. Like there are jobs where you can come in, know nothing, and come volunteer at the Red Cross. And we really value those volunteers. But I think a lot of our volunteers require some serious training. We have nurses and psychologists and social workers who do really intense disaster mental health and healthcare work, and that requires a lot of training. So that's another big component to it. Yeah, it is amazing, actually, upon reflection. I should come on shows like this to talk to you about it, and then I'll feel better about it, because in real time it all feels hard.
And I think that anybody listening just kind of starts to think, okay, man, where are all these people coming from? How are all these volunteers being organized? Like, how are they getting sent to the right places? So when we start to think about the people that are doing things right now, like where is the help needed? Where are those volunteers? Where are those people that work for the American Red Cross? Like, where are those services being offered, and kind of specifically where in the community they're being dispersed to?
Well, if we're doing our job right, Fabian, they're coming from your neighborhood. Right. So in the ideal scenario, and admittedly, we're not there all the time. Right. But in the ideal scenario, your neighborhood, oh, that's Chad. Like that's the Red Cross guy. Right. He's the guy that's always like, hey, did you change your smoke alarm? Right. Will you come and volunteer to install smoke alarms? Right. Or when there's something bad, he's the guy that's always saying, hey, let's go check on our gas lines in our neighborhood that everything's cool. We've got a real ambitious goal in Indiana to get into neighborhoods and mobilize and organize them to be as safe as possible. And we're doing that in 5 pilot areas across the state. In Indianapolis, it's in Martindale Brightwood in partnership with Martin University and a range of partners. And we're really excited about that. And this response is no different. So it's neighbors helping neighbors. And so our disaster workforce comes from all over the state. Our biomedical volunteers range from the person that takes your temperature when you come in to the person that gives you cookies and orange juice when you're done, which is pretty important if you've ever donated blood. Volunteers make this whole place, and we're doing some online things right now, and we're getting volunteers from like all over the country signing into our online courses, which is cool, because then we're sending them to their Red Crosses. Like, oh, you're in Sacramento, that's fine, we can connect you with your Red Cross. So everywhere, and we need more, right? We could probably use another few thousand.
Do you see that in times like this, you guys see an influx of people that want to volunteer? You just mentioned people signing up for courses and things like that. Like, is this the time where things like that get busy for you guys?
Yeah, it's like what you said at the beginning, right? Like you're using this time to do the things you always kind of wanted to do. Like, oh, okay, we're at home. I'm gonna get my mic set up the way I want, or do remote interviewing. I think people have that same thing about volunteering. I think during crisis, the American people, all humans, by the way, not just in America, want to do something. And some people, that manifests as I'll go shovel my neighbor's sidewalk, or I'll give blood. And then there's a subset of people that said, I can do more, right? I have a set of skills. I have the dedication. I can do more, and I want to do it. And you're absolutely right. We see a huge groundswell of support during disaster, but typically that manifests as a lot of people signing up, and then they may take a training, and then we never hear from them again, right? If you think about it, it makes sense. You get inspired by the tornado, you want to do something, and then you realize we're going to make you do like 40 hours of training, and you're like, you know what? I love the Red Cross. I'll give them a check, and that's fine, right? Because everybody has a role to play. What's different, I think, so far in this experience that we're all going through, is that people have nothing to do besides work and stay at home. And so they are saying, well, you know what? I think I really could take a class. We had a psychological first aid course that we offered in conjunction with the state of Indiana, the Family and Social Services Administration. We planned on maybe 60 or 65 people taking the class. We had 4,000 people register for the course.
Wow.
4,000 people, right? For an online course and how to provide psychological first aid to your neighbors who need help. That's amazing. I mean, if that doesn't lift your spirits, I'm not sure what will. It's a testament, I think, to people wanting to help.
Absolutely. And when you talk about just like neighbors helping neighbors, it's like you helping your own family, right? Like I will admit, I don't think that I don't think, I know for a fact I am not like CPR certified. So if I was ever in a position where my wife was compromised and I needed to give her CPR, all I know is what I've seen on television. And I don't think that's going to get me through it. Right. If that's what she had to
Get you
rely
farther
on,
than you think.
I kind of feel bad for her. So, all that to say that it probably just makes sense for people to go through some of this training, whether it's, out of the goodness of your heart to go help your neighbor, or just to like help yourself in a situation where your immediate family, the people that live in your home, like can feel safe, or you can feel safe around those people as well in like crazy situations.
Yeah, we don't care about your motives. Right? I always tell people, you can go looking for altruism all you want. Like people are like, oh, you're in the altruism business. You're like, no, I'm a humanitarian. Like it's actually different than that, right? We just sort of value these certain things about human beings. And your point's so well taken. And by the way, if I hear like you doing like staying alive in your house, like from The Office, then I'll know something's bad. But yeah, you should get trained. You should know how to clear an airway from someone who's choking, because the odds are pretty good you're going to find someone choking at some point. And that helping behavior doesn't always have to be through the Red Cross, right? We don't get a Tupperware set every time someone does the right thing for a neighbor, right? Through us. What we want is for people to understand that there is no individual way to get through the hardest things in life. There is none. And this yo-yo principle we live on, which is you're on your own. We call it the yo-yo principle. You're never on your own. It doesn't work. We got a ton of evidence it doesn't work. You may be able to stockpile enough toilet paper in your basement to last 9 months, but you're not on your own in that, right? There had to be a supply chain to get it to you, and we want people to think about, what about my neighbors, right? That's how we get through stuff, and that's the story of the Red Cross, right? You think about World War I and victory gardens and war bonds, and we're at our best when we're together. No question.
And why right now does the work that the Red Cross do matter? Like what is so important about what you guys are doing right now?
Well, first of all, I think it's fair to say that we are just a small player, right, in this huge response. The nurses and doctors going to work, the emergency managers, the trash folks, the sanitation workers. I mean, you name it. This is an all of community effort, right? And that includes, by the way, every single person who doesn't have an official title, who's just doing what they're supposed to do, right? The person that's actually taking this seriously and staying home, right? They're as much of a hero as anybody else, because that's a big ask. I think for the Red Cross, what is so important about our work right now is that we are probably one of the few agencies, we're not the only agency working, believe me, and we rely on all sorts of partners, but we're one of the few agencies that's able to say to everyone, come join us right now. We're going to put you to work right now, equip you and give you the skills, and then we're going to unleash you out into the community to do amazing work. And I think if there wasn't someone said this, the guy, a good friend of mine, John Leiter, he was the CEO of the Red Cross before I took this job in Indiana. He'd been there. I think he worked for the Red Cross over 30 years. And if John's listening and I get it wrong, he'll let me know, I'm sure. But John always said, the best thing about the Red Cross is that if the Red Cross didn't exist, it's such a good idea someone else would just invent it. And I think that's the reminder for all of us that at the core, helping each other is what we do.
And speaking about helping right now, people in the community, people that are listening, what can we do? What can we be doing to help you guys?
We've got two big needs right now. And the first, I'll talk about the first because the second one's pretty nuanced. The first big need is that we need an army of volunteers to join our ranks, because many of our volunteers are most vulnerable to COVID-19. So we rely on a lot of people who have a lot of free time, including many retirees, to do a lot of our disaster sheltering work. Obviously, we're making and assessing that workforce, understanding that many of them are going to be reluctant to go out, and for good reason. They may be at high risk for morbidity associated with COVID-19. So we need to find a diverse mix of volunteers who want to come join our movement. And that does not mean that you have to be the one that goes out at 3 a.m. to the fire, although we need people like that, especially in central Indiana. But we need a range of people, and we need them to commit, right? We Americans to commit. If you are sitting around complaining about the world around you, which I'll have to admit every one of us is at some point. So it's not like the Red Cross folks are immune to this, right? We're in the middle of this together. We need you. The country needs you, and we need you to volunteer, and we need you to volunteer now. If you can't volunteer, we need your blood. And we need your blood anyway, by the way. But many of our biggest donors are also volunteers. We put out an appeal a couple of weeks ago when the blood volume dropped precipitously because we had all these businesses and schools hosting blood drives. So when they closed, we lost blood drive locations, and the community really rallied. We lost 300,000 units of blood in the nation. I mean, it's an immense number.
What is a unit?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks for asking. It's a pint. It's like a little bag of blood. Yeah. It's a pint. Yeah. So think about it, right? You go and you give a pint of blood. So that's about 300,000 people. Some people give 2 pints. So that's not exactly, a 1-to-1. We rallied in Indiana. I'm telling you what, we rallied. We rescheduled blood drives. Our team, board members around the state, community organizations were like, we're going to fix it. We're going to get it done. We stabilized the blood supply. That's amazing. That happens all the time. Hoosiers just, they get it done, right? GSD, they get stuff done. Mm-hmm. The challenge now is that product only lasts a certain amount of time. So we've got about 3.5, 4 weeks of shelf life for this product. And so we've got to think long term. Less than 3% of Americans donate blood. I'm not going to ask if you donate blood. It's none of my business, but I'll say this. Less than 3% of Americans donate blood. That means that when we get short, we have to do these huge appeals, recruit a lot of people, right? Get everybody jazzed, but we don't necessarily get long-term donors. So we're going to be in a spot. This COVID-19 thing is a long-term event. This is not ending soon. We are not out of the woods at all. What we had was a big spike in the number of donors. And now we've got to think, okay, can we maintain donor consistency? And so the call now is go to redcrossblood.org, put in your zip code, and find a blood drive. And if that blood drive, the nearest blood drive to you isn't until May, don't say, oh, they don't need our blood. Say, oh, they need my blood in May. I'll donate in May. And that is so important because we've got to keep the supply level through time. So those are our two big needs. Some people can't volunteer because of time. Many people are not blood donors or not eligible to donate blood. And we always can use help, right? We can use financial donations and other things, which also can be done through redcross.org. But you don't have to even do it with the Red Cross. If you are called to service with a food bank, with a community-based organization, with your neighborhood, you're helping our movement all the same. I think the biggest thing is people just need to act. Even though we're physically distant right now, we cannot be socially disengaged.
I completely agree with that statement. So for people that do want to get involved, right, they feel this surge or this need to like, okay, I want to donate blood or I want to volunteer my time. But in the back of their mind, or maybe they have family that's saying, okay, hey, like right now is not a good time to be going out. Like we have to stay safe, right? There's these conflicting arguments or feelings. What do you say to people that can kind of help alleviate some of those concerns, or what kind of safety information do you have for someone that does want to donate blood but might be afraid that, hey, going out right now might not be the best time?
Absolutely. We've taken a lot of measures to make sure our blood drives are safe. I think, first of all, you can't get COVID-19 from blood, right? You can't get it from the blood itself. We have instituted practices at our drives to increase the social distance between folks. We're doing temperature screening, symptom checks. Even though we can't transmit by blood, we are asking some screening questions in cooperation with blood banks all over America to try and screen out folks who are presumptively COVID positive. So I think we're taking the right steps there. You'll see our phlebotomists and technicians wearing appropriate personal protective equipment. So the drives themselves are in good shape. And that's the case, I think, in drives all over the country, and not just with the Red Cross. What I would say to people is, first, I'm glad you're thinking about this, right? I'm glad you're wondering, is this worth going out for? And we want you to make that calculus for every single thing you're doing, going to get takeout, going to get cupcakes, everything you're doing. We haven't figured out a way to like manufacture human blood. Believe me, people have been trying for a long time, right? Because that would alleviate, I might be out of a job, but I would gladly take it. We've got to have blood. And the blood that you count on when you go to the hospital will not be there if we don't get out and donate. The governor has excluded blood donation from the prohibited list to say going to give blood is an essential function. And so the mayor and the first lady both donated blood recently. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. And in terms of volunteering in general, we have volunteer jobs that don't require you to leave your home. We have training that does not require you to leave your home. I'm sitting downstairs, and what's funny is you know where I'm at right now is in my bedroom. So there's this giant step and repeat in my bedroom. Yeah, it's hilarious, right? And I feel like one of these TV hosts that does the show from their house and no one knows, every day.
That's a little bit higher quality than some of the stuff that I've seen on TV recently.
But downstairs, I've got all these boxes in my dining room because we're sending care packages to our workers, and my kids are like stuffing like hand sanitizer and candies in bags. Like we've got jobs like that that need to happen. So if you're about getting out in public, it's okay. Call us. Let's see if we can put you to work.
And you may have mentioned this, and I may have just like glossed over you saying it, but is there a particular type of blood that's needed more than others?
Yeah, I know a lot of people like to think that their blood is the most important. And we do have universal blood types that make it easier to transfuse. But the truth is we need all donors of all types. I will say this, we need everyone in the community to donate. Blood donation is not one-to-one. It's not like, I'll give you a great example. We need communities and persons of color to donate, right? Because sickle cell disease and other things have special alleles on blood that matter for donation matching. But more importantly than that, we need people to donate. So no special blood types. Everybody is welcome to come and donate, and we'll gladly accept their donation. I will say, not everyone is eligible to donate when they get there. Your iron may be too low. You may not meet FDA requirements. That's okay. We still want you to come in and try. And that's an effort worthwhile.
I'm not going to make any excuses for whether I do or do not donate blood, but I will say that the last time that there was a drive at work, I went there and they had to call the doctor because my heart rate is so low.
Oh.
Yeah. Like my resting heart rate kind of sits around 40 to 44.
Wow.
Like,
are you a runner?
I do run. I do a lot of CrossFit and stuff. And so my Apple Watch will go off every 15 minutes saying, "Hey, your heart rate has dropped into the 40s for more than 10 minutes."
That's awesome.
Kind of freaks me out
That's a
every
great thing, right? As your local nurse, like spot on. Good work. Great
from,
heart.
from what
Strokes
I've
volume.
Googled. Yes, it's not like I'm not concerned.
Yeah.
But yeah. So aside from donating blood, maybe volunteering, is there anything else that people in the community can be doing?
A lot of people want to donate funds. We are actively raising a huge amount of money. The Red Cross response to this COVID-19, our initial estimate is that we'll spend between 150 and 160 million dollars just in this first phase. You might think, holy moly, that's like government appropriation, or we're going to have to like take out loans from the World Bank level. But the truth is that the generosity of the American people always comes through. If you have funds and you're comfortable donating, we'd love it. We'd love you to donate. In fact, you can do it on your Alexis. You can just say, I hope you don't have an Alexis in your house if you're listening, so turn it off. But you can just say, Alexis, donate $10 to the Red Cross, and it'll you through the process. I do that, by the way, every single home I go in, like my friends. I'm like, hey, Alexis, donate $10 to the Red Cross. You can make a donation online, but in honesty, what's needed really now is engagement of any type. It's all important, and I can't say it enough. The organizations that work with the Red Cross through the United Way, through non-United Way organizations, just community-based organizations of all time, they all need your help right now, every one of them. And you may think, man, this is not the right time for me to be volunteering. I may be worried about my job. I may be worried about my own situation. And to that, I say, that's the best time. The crisis is now. It is here. If you're a young professional and you're not on a board, we've got board slots open. We need board members, right? So, I mean, the range of things you can get engaged with now is pretty big.
Wonderful. So I hope everybody's paying attention and rewind that part so they can kind of listen in to what they can be doing. One of the fun parts that I enjoy really doing about this show, we have a section called Rapid Fire. So maybe I didn't prep you with enough time to.
That's great. I love it. Let's see what happens.
For these, but it's just a couple quick fun questions. Nothing that you should have been taking notes on. So my favorite one to ask: what are you currently obsessed with? I know everybody's got a lot more free time right now, ostensibly a little bit more free time. But is there something that you've either recently become obsessed with or something that you have been obsessed with for a while?
I'm obsessed with hospital capacity right now.
In terms of just trying to figure out how the hell we're going to deal with it all?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Fair answer. Have you been binging anything? TV, movies, music, podcasts?
Yes, I have been. I know this is like everyone else. I started watching The Tiger King, and yeah, and I got to tell you, wackadoodle, right? Yeah, wackadoodle. It's like it's the perfect TV show for this moment. I can't think of a more profound distraction.
All right, Tiger King, that's a good one. And then food, right? We all want to do our part, maybe in supporting some of our great restaurants that have always been there for us, that are struggling to survive during this time. Is there a particular carryout place that you've enjoyed during our social distancing?
Yeah, so I live about a block away from 20 Tap, sort of just south of Broad Ripple, and our friends own it. And so I hesitate to tell you how often I'm there. It's so bad actually that my kids were like, "Are we going to cook now during this pandemic?" They're closed, unfortunately. We made a donation from our family to the wait staff that are really part of our extended family, and we'll do that again here in a couple of weeks because they need the support. We've been doing a lot of Napoli's pizza takeout. We've been doing a lot of local restaurants, and in fact, we're still using the local CSO from the farmers market when we can to get direct deliveries of Indiana produce. And the big thing with food in our house is we're making bread. I don't have a lot of money. I work at the Red Cross, right? Like I'm not so I can't really insider trade. But I will tell you a small insider trading item. When we started seeing in January this pandemic start to come up, I said, we should have a bread maker. And so I bought one.
Oh my gosh.
I insider traded myself on a bread maker, and we are making bread like every 2 days. And I'll tell you what, it's not all good. I'm not going to lie. It's not all good, but it's fun.
what is your go-to bread? I recently made a beer bread myself, and
Oh,
then
that's
made
good.
homemade cinnamon rolls this past weekend for my wife. So I am looking to get into the hobby. What's
Okay,
your
you've
go-to bread?
already outstripped I mean, you've
Oh,
already shamed me. We're basically making bread without bread flour because you can't get bread. So I'm like, whatever all-purpose flour I can use. So basically, I'm pouring it in with some water and some yeast, and I'm just making regular bread. Now, I understand the swirling thing can be done if you take it out of the machine and you knead it and you do some things. So my friend in Maryland said he's going to FaceTime me this weekend and teach me how.
all right. Well, somebody just texted me, maybe this was a week ago, about Dutch oven sourdough bread. So
Oh,
maybe that's the next thing you can get into if you have a
yeah.
big enough Dutch oven, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, I'm gonna let you get out of here, but I want to give you one more opportunity. I know you mentioned redcrossblood.org, but any other websites for people to know, to pay attention to look to either for information or ways to get involved?
Yeah, I think the one site to go to is just redcross.org. You can go to redcrossblood.org as well. They both kind of eventually point to the same place. But if you go to redcross.org, you can sign up to volunteer, you can make a donation, you can sign up for a blood drive. You can also call our office, 1-888-684-1441, 1-888-684-1441. We have 52 locations around the state. Someone can get you plugged in no matter where you are. And thanks so much again for having me. This was a lot of fun, and
Awesome.
really appreciate the opportunity.
We loved having you on. We'll share all of this with you so you can get it out there in your networks as well. But again, thank you for sharing all this vital information, especially at this time. So thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, we'll see you, Chad.
Thanks.